So welcome to the podcast, Nora.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So can you share your story and how you got into helping women with fertility?
Absolutely. I'd love to. It's a little bit of a personal story. I feel like a lot of maybe professionals and practitioners in this space kind of come in from their personal story. So I am, as a preconception health coach, I'm myself a 37-year-old woman who wants to start a family and have babies. And it has not happened yet for me, but I know it's going to be happening for me in the next couple of years. So, as a health professional, being a holistic nutritionist, being a yoga instructor, a personal trainer, and now I'm a fertility awareness practitioner, I was like, you know what? In my early 30s, I was like, let me just do what I can for myself to optimize my health the best way I can so that I can prepare my body and have babies later in life. And as a practitioner, went out, did all this research, and I was like, I am so overwhelmed. There is so much information out here. And somebody who's in this space as a practitioner, if this is overwhelming for me, I can just imagine what it's like for other people. So as I started moving through my 30s, and started applying all these principles, for me, I just had realized and noticed for a lot of women I was talking to, friends, family, that there was a big need for this. So that's
Mhm.
when I decided to really shift and really hone in on my niche and specify with this preconception space. Because when I first came into the health and wellness world in my late 20s, early 30s, this is actually my second career. I first had a corporate job for 8 years as a human resources professional. Um, I was just working generally with men and women, and I focused on gut health. But that had really morphed and changed, especially as I moved through the early to mid part of my 30s and just started to see this need for women really understanding their bodies, knowing how it works, how to understand their cycle, how to optimize their cycle, how to optimize their hormones at the end goal to help with fertility, and at the end of the day help women get pregnant. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the background.
Awesome. So I mean it's obviously a lot of us, so many of us start out as patients. When I first started to go to an acupuncturist, I mean I would miss 3 months of my period, and looking back, I probably had undiagnosed PCOS.
Right.
And had I not gone beforehand, I wouldn't have been able to conceive. And I know that, and it's so crazy how just something so simple and can totally fix and change your path. I mean, so many times it's not that complicated, and we're given the birth control pill, or we're giving like a lot more than we actually need to regulate.
Mhm.
And you also mentioned an important thing is the gut health. Gut health is
Yes.
so important. If you can get the gut health in check, just that alone can make such a difference.
It will change your whole being. And
Yeah.
that's when I first graduated from nutrition school. Like that was my well, it still is my passion, but that's what I was like wanting to shout on the rooftops everywhere. Everybody needs to learn and understand how their gut works. Like I remember when I went to school and I was like, I didn't even know that my stomach was located up on the left side under my
Yeah.
rib cage. I thought my stomach was down by my uterus. And I'm like, no,
Right.
that's your small intestine.
Yes.
So I was like, how do I not know this as an adult? Just the basics of how my body works. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so I first started with the gut health piece. And I mean, the key components there is, I always like to say to my clients, you're not only what you eat, but you're also what you absorb, what you digest, what you
Mhm.
assimilate, and what you excrete, because you could be eating the healthiest diet in the world, but if you don't have a healthy gut, then you're
Yeah.
not able to reap the benefits of it. And as we now know from all of this research, the microbiome is an organ in and of itself, and
Mhm.
it's responsible for running your metabolism, for running your immune system, for helping lower inflammation in the body, for mental health. Like the seat of our health is almost it sits inside of our digestive tract. So that that was kind of like the first kind of step in my health and wellness profession. And then I use that as now as a big pillar and a big part of the foundation of what I do when I work with my preconception clients.
So what are common causes that you do see for that cause an imbalance in the gut health?
So basic things here, I would say, is first of all, just people not eating an optimized kind of whole nutrient dense diet, or having a diet that is a little bit more acidic, that would be ideal. So even if we are eating healthy fresh foods and salads and such, a lot of us are fueled on caffeine for a good chunk of the day. And
Hmm.
caffeine in and of itself, whether it's through coffee, whether it's through caffeine, whether it's drinking some cokes or having too much chocolate, can be very acidic to the body.
Hmm.
So so just, I mean, a few gut health components here, and I would say telltale signs is first off, just looking at your bowel movements, because a lot of people aren't even pooping
Right.
even once a day.
Yeah.
Ideally, we want to be pooping 2 to 3 times a day. That is, like, think about it, one meal in, one meal out.
Hmm.
And so people who, I say one poop a day is almost considered constipation. And so if we're not able to, like, we rid the toxins in our body every single day from our bowel movements. And if we cannot, if we can excrete, that's why I say you're not only what you eat, you're what you digest, assimilate, and also what you excrete. So I'm seeing clients who are, not having healthy, regular bowel movements. Maybe they're having too much caffeine or coffee in the day because their hormones are shot and they're exhausted and they just need the caffeine to get them through. This can be very acidic to the body. In addition to that, it also depends on what their history has been with birth control, antibiotic use, because this is going to
Right.
really change that it's going to put your body in what's called dysbiosis. So we've got
Hmm.
good and bad bacteria in the gut. And we need both good and bad. It's never about eradicating the bad entirely. It's about having that healthy balance of both so that we have this symbiotic relationship between the good and the bad bacteria. And so
Right.
depending on, antibiotic medication use in the past, if they're currently on anything now, that is also going to disrupt the microbiome. So these are just, a few things off the top of my head that I see a lot,
Yeah.
especially with clients, that they don't think is they just don't think twice about it during the day,
It's
right? Like,
true. Yeah.
as a part of their everyday life. And like you said, sometimes it's just those small little shifts and tweaks that
Hmm.
make a difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And when you do take antibiotics, 'cause sometimes you have to,
Yes.
obviously, you can't always avoid it.
Hmm.
There's different perspectives. I've heard people say you should start probiotics while you're taking antibiotics, and some people say wait until you're finished because it's just going to cancel them out anyway and do it afterwards. What are important things to bring back a healthy microbiome after a course of antibiotics?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple ways. So antibiotics will kind of remove the good probiotics in the digestive tract. And so there's a couple ways that you can re-inoculate your gut with these good probiotics. And they can come from food sources, or they can come from the supplement, a probiotic supplement. And because I'm a nutritionist, I love to say get everything from the food source as much as you can. But there are some times when we do absolutely have to supplement. So especially if you're going through a round of antibiotic, I do recommend to my clients to supplement with probiotics while they are on antibiotics,
Hmm.
but being mindful that you are taking them with a minimum of 4 hours away from the antibiotic.
Right.
Because if you take it too close, you're just wasting your money, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just going to kill it all. So I would say it's almost, sometimes you don't know when you're going to take the antibiotic, but if you know a round of medication or antibiotics are coming up, I would almost double dose the probiotics leading up to the medication and the antibiotic, then supplementing during, making sure you're taking at least 4 hours of a break between the antibiotic and the probiotic. And then post after as well, doing what's called like a therapeutic dose of a probiotic. So a general maintenance dose of a probiotic now is anywhere between 10 to 15 million CFUs, sorry, billion, not million, 10
Hmm.
to 15 billion colony forming units, CFU. You'll see that on the back of the bottle. Um, and you can have a therapeutic dose can be anywhere between 25 to 150 billion colony forming units. And this is all just, there's a lot of variables that I'd have to kind of talk to a client to understand how to best dose them. But I would say for sure, if you're going to double the dose of a maintenance dose after the antibiotic use, you could go up. Let's say you have a probiotic supplement that is 15 billion, just double it. just
Right.
take 2 for like an additional week, and then you can go back to your maintenance dose, or get it in from, a nice quarter of a cup of healthy, delicious sauerkraut every single day,
Yes.
or kimchi, or drinking that
Yeah.
kefir. There's a lot of different ways and I would still do that during your antibiotic dose. Enjoy the kefir, enjoy the
Yeah.
sauerkraut, and get it from the food source as well.
For sure. And then also a prebiotic, which is something that a lot of times people miss.
Yes, yes. The prebiotics, no, you're not. I mean, I don't. The prebiotics mainly come, I find, from like the food sources, which is
Yeah.
onions, garlic, artichoke. Yeah, all of that stuff gives you a lot of those prebiotics as well to help feed the probiotics.
Right.
So, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Because people think, oh, I'll just take probiotics, I'm fine. But it's important to also eat certain foods so that you're giving it a place to really grow roots, so to
growth.
speak.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So this repair, actually, I've got a 4-step model that I kind of use with my clients to help them organize in their brain, because it's a lot of information. It can be very overwhelming, and I try to kind of simplify things as much as possible. And this is actually my third step in my four. I have what's called my 4 R's to kind of getting pregnant or helping you get pregnant. And my third step is repair. Is all
Hmm.
about repairing the gut,
Right.
because, as mentioned, it's kind of a cornerstone of our health.
So let's go over those 4 R's.
I'd love to. Yeah. Yeah. So I actually the first R was is remove. So what we want to make sure, or what we want to do with our body is, Michelle, I know, as you know this, a lot of people know this. Sometimes we just have to remind ourselves is that the body knows how to thrive. The body knows
Yep.
how to what it needs to do. We don't have to tell it what to do. It knows what to do, but we just have to create that optimal environment for it. So the first R is removing the noxious foods, the noxious substances that we're putting into our body on a daily basis that is bogging us down, that is inflaming us, that is imbalancing our hormones. So as a holistic nutritionist, we're going to stick to foods for this podcast because I can go on a tangent forever about many things. But with regards to the foods, I say, there's about a handful of foods that I say it's time to completely remove these or greatly reduce and minimize them, because
Hmm.
everybody's on their own journey and everybody is at their own state of health, and it's important to kind of take baby steps and move
Right.
slowly towards our goals. Otherwise we set ourselves up for failure. So the first food that I would say to remove or greatly reduce is actually caffeine. There's been a lot of studies that do show that excessive amount of caffeine intake does impact our hormones enough to impact fertility. I know recently there was a study done that showed a study of women who drank about 300 milligrams of caffeine per day, which is about 3 cups of coffee. They found that they had 27 their time to conceive was reduced by 27%, just by drinking that much caffeine alone every day. So caffeine is a big one. It
Yeah.
messes with our
What
cortisol.
about matcha or green tea? I just want to kind of throw that in there because I think people think that
Yes.
it's okay, I'm having this kind of caffeine versus that kind of caffeine.
That's a great question, because I was I kind of did this to myself recently as well. Caffeine, and I'll explain my personal experience in a moment, but caffeine is caffeine. It doesn't matter in which form it's coming from, whether it's
Hmm.
green tea, whether it's matcha, whether it's yerba mate, whether it's ginseng, whether it's cacao from the cacao pod, whether it's
Hmm.
from coffee, whether espresso. Caffeine is caffeine. And so it's just being mindful of how much caffeine consumption that you are having every day. I'm a very active person myself. I love to exercise. And for me, I was taking this shot of pre workout every morning as my little pick me up and go to. And I'm like, this is not bad. I'm not drinking coffee. It's fine. Only 100 milligrams of caffeine. Let me tell you, I've been doing that for like the last 5 years. And it's a month ago, I decided to stop because my health coach was asking me, Nora, are you having caffeine? I'm like, no, I don't have coffee. And then she's like, and then she dug deeper. And then, because I suffer from PMS on and
Hmm.
off. And
Hmm.
so that's something that I've removed myself now. And I'll tell you, my sleep quality is improved like through the roof.
Yeah.
My cravings have gone down. So the source of caffeine in my pre-workout is yerba mate. And it doesn't
Hmm.
matter, caffeine is caffeine. So
Right.
just
That's
being
right.
mindful of, yeah.
And you mentioned something actually that I really want to point out. So you are an expert, you know all this stuff, and you're still using a health coach. And I love that because it just
Yes.
goes to show, some people are like, oh, well, I know, I can do it myself. I'm fine. It doesn't matter how much you know, we can always use the help and that extra perspective because it's weird. We get so blind to ourselves to the point where I just recently finally said, "Oh wow, I did have PCOS." Like it took me years, and I see people all the time. I tell them, "You have these signs. Go to the doctor." I could see it so clearly with other people. You cannot see it with yourself. So it's so
Well,
important to have a coach.
yes, yes, absolutely. I tell my clients that too. I'm like, listen, I have a health coach. And
Yeah,
it was boggling my mind where I'm like, my PMS is just driving me bonkers. Like, I know I literally do this for a living. This is what I do
yeah.
to help people for a living. I
It
know what I
doesn't
need to
matter
do, but it
when it comes
doesn't
to yourself.
matter.
It's a
We
whole
all
different ball game.
exactly. So I'm human as well. But that was like literally this just happened, Michelle, in the last it's been 3 weeks since I haven't had caffeine, and I just finished ovulating, so I'm coming into my luteal phase now. So I'm really interested. My coach is like, Nora, give me one cycle without any caffeine, no green tea. I'm trying to even
Yeah,
stay away from chocolate, like
yeah.
nothing. And I'm diligent. I'm sticking to it. First 2 weeks was hard. I was a zombie. I had the withdrawal symptoms, but I'm like, I can't believe this is happening to me.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's great though. It's
yeah,
great because
yes,
we can all learn, and I think that that's the key point, really important point, is that it doesn't matter
yes,
how much we know for other people. We all have blind spots. We can always grow, and it's a beautiful thing. So
yes. So,
what other things would
yes.
you remove?
Okay, so caffeine is one. The second one is industrial seed oils. So vegetable oil, canola oil. Think about any oil that is made in any, well, yeah, okay. So any oil that is made from a seed that isn't supposed to be made into an oil. So this
Hmm.
is, yeah, they're called vegetable seed oils, which is rapeseed oil, canola oil. It's even on the
So
container say
grapeseed oil,
vegetable.
I've heard a
Sorry,
lot of Oh,
rapeseed,
okay, not
not grape seed.
grapeseed, because grapeseed
Correct,
I've heard good
correct.
things about. Okay.
Grapeseed is amazing for cooking at high heat because it's stable at high heat.
Yes. Yes. Okay, got
Yes,
it. So what
yes,
oils do you recommend in general? I know we're kind of like jumping around, but
that's okay.
because grapeseed oil, yes, I've heard great things about. A lot of people cook with olive oil, which is not stable in high heat.
Correct. That is
It's an
correct.
important thing to kind of mention.
Yeah, if you're listening, just get a piece of paper if you haven't already. 'Cause there's a lot of little nuggets I'm going to be giving you.
Yeah.
But the high heat oils that are sort of the three key oils that I like to cook and recommend for my clients for high heat is coconut oil. Now, a
Hmm.
lot of people don't like the flavor, so if you don't like the flavor, just omit it.
Yeah.
Grapeseed oil is another one that's great for high heat, and
Hmm.
avocado oil.
Yeah,
Avocado
me
is another
too. I
one that's, yeah,
love
love it.
avocado. I love it.
Yes. Or
Yeah.
butter. If you have grass-fed butter,
Or
butter
ghee.
is, or ghee, exactly, which is the
Yeah.
clarified butter. Yeah. So there's lots and lots of options to choose from. Some of my clients cook in lard and like different lard that they collect from cooking animal protein. But if we're just staying with the basics, it's grapeseed, avocado, and
Hmm.
coconut. And
Yeah.
then extra virgin olive oil, think about using that and keeping it as more of like a garnish
Yep.
for your salads or drizzling it on. I literally drizzle olive oil on my eggs in the morning. I think it
Because
tastes
it's got so
delicious.
many benefits.
Exactly. It's a polyunsaturated fat, which is different from a saturated fat, which you're getting from the grapeseed, the coconut, and
Hmm.
the avocado. And so, what happens when that polyunsaturated fat with the EVOO, that's just the
Hmm.
little
Extra
short
virgin.
version I use, yeah. Um, the molecular structure of it when it is exposed to high heat, like twists and changes, and then I mean we don't taste a difference, but we when we ingest that, it's inflammatory to our body inside, and
Yes.
so that's something to think about when you're using, I guess, that for high heat. So think twice when you're using extra virgin olive oil for high heat.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, so I'd say industrial seed oils, no canola, no vegetable, no rapeseed oil. If you just Google industrial seed oils, you'll see a long laundry list. and just whatever you've got in your cupboard, throw it out. They are extremely inflammatory to the body. If you even want to learn the whole process of how it's made, they bleach it. It's crazy. You're not consuming real food.
Yeah.
So
What
industrial
do you
seed
think of
oils,
sunflower
it's
oil?
also,
Also
well,
sunflower?
yeah, it's so there's safflower and sunflower, which
Yeah,
are, yeah, but I believe, if my memory is correct, it's under the industrial seed oil category.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So I do the caffeine, the industrial seed oils, and soy is a big one. Now, when I say soy, I mean unfermented soy. Fermented soy is okay, but unfermented soy in the form of tofu is a no-no. In the form of soy milk is a no-no. This is very estrogenic promoting in the body. And people are drinking soy milk like, it's
Yeah,
just like water every single day.
yeah.
And that could really disrupt and imbalance that delicate balance of hormones in our body. So I say, as best as you can, again, depending on how much soy you eat, unfermented soy. So that's also even like edamame that you'd get from like the sushi restaurant. I don't touch that anymore. Soy milk and tofu. But then you can, if you're vegan or vegetarian, they really sometimes are, they're like, well, what do I do for my protein? So fermented soy in the form of tempeh is totally good, and
Yeah.
that's okay. In the form of soy sauce, tamari and soy sauce is fermented, so that is still good and okay. And there's something called miso paste. Have you ever cooked with miso paste?
Yes. It's
Yeah, it's
delicious.
delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fermented soy as well, and that's totally okay to use. But so if you have soy milk in your fridge and it's something that you put in your grocery cart every single day, I would think twice about the next time about doing that next time. So soy, and then the last one is obviously sugar, refined
Yeah.
sugar. I mean, we don't have to go down the rabbit hole about that one, but again,
Yeah.
very acidic,
I think
very
it's pretty.
acidic to the body.
Yeah.
And I don't mean, fresh fruit is good. There's natural sugars in a lot of foods that we eat, but I just mean like the pastries, the cookies, the refined
The
white sugar.
Yeah.
It's just
The
it's gonna
juice.
steal
Yeah.
exactly all of the concentrated juices. Is just, omit or greatly reduce as much as you can, because again, I'm human. And Michelle, I love my ice cream. I love ice cream. So I will allow myself ice cream, and I will allow myself cookies from time to time. I am not perfect. I do not
Yes.
completely, this sugar, sometimes I will allow that little treat.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm all about 90-10 or 80-20 rule. It depends on your state of health and what your goals are for
And
achieving pregnancy.
that's a sustainable, healthy attitude, I think, in general, if not getting too constrictive with your diet and allowing yourself those moments, because then you don't feel as bad when you're not doing it, because you know that you're not
Exactly.
imprisoned.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, and then the last two pieces, I will quickly mention these because these are big. Everybody thinks about this all the time, is gluten and dairy. Those are two big ones that, a lot of my clients ask me about. And I really say it totally depends on the individual. It depends on your intolerance to them.
Yep.
Because I can have gluten and dairy and I'm okay. However, for me, I've got a threshold. If I have too much dairy, then I do not feel well. I break out, my digestion is off. But it totally depends. So
Yeah.
you've got to really be able to pay attention to your body and understand these signs and symptoms. Is it bloating you? Are you getting skin rashes, headaches? Are you not sleeping well? Are you having explosive diarrhea? Like, there's your body is all talking to you every day on what you're
Totally.
doing, right?
Yes.
So yeah, gluten and dairy, I would say, are individual dependent. But I say again, I try and minimize it, but I don't completely omit it from my diet and work specifically with my clients on their lifestyle, on their health, depending on what that looks like for them.
Cool. And then the next one is replace.
Replace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first we want to remove all the noxious substances that are bogging us down. And now we want to replace and bring back in all the nutrient dense fertility foods that are going to kind of ramp us back up to keep us nice and healthy and optimize our body and optimize our egg reserves as we prepare for pregnancy. So there's also another handful of foods that I'd love to share with you. The first one is dark leafy greens. I don't think this is a surprise to many people. We're always saying eat more greens, but specifically for fertility, they're filled with chlorophyll, folate, and fiber.
Mhm.
And folate, as we know, is a lot of women supplement with folate as they prepare for pregnancy and during pregnancy and their prenatal. So we get that in its natural form in all the dark leafy greens. Fiber, lots of amazing fiber. We need fiber to have healthy, regular bowel movements. Our stool is made up of fiber, bacteria, and toxins, and water. Drink enough water. So the fiber in the dark leafy greens is great, and the chlorophyll is good for cleaning the blood and just kind of cleansing the system. So dark leafy greens. The second one I would say is collagen. Collagen and gelatin is great for preparing the body for pregnancy. And you can get collagen now in a variety of forms, in powder supplemental form. I actually make bone broth all the
Yes, bone
time.
broth. Yeah,
Bone
I was gonna
broth, like
say.
it's not just a trend, like it's a thing. It's a
Oh
real
yeah. Oh,
thing.
it's been done for thousands of years in Chinese culture. So
Yes, yes, yes. And same thing, like in as like, so I'm Jewish, and growing up, my grandmother was always making chicken soup, and my mom still makes chicken soup, and it's called like the Jewish penicillin or something. Because
oh, totally.
whenever
No, I'm
anybody,
Jewish too. My mom
oh, there
says
you
it.
go. Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
know that from your
She
last
said,
name, Horowitz. Yeah.
yeah. She said it's the Jewish penicillin.
It's the Jewish penicillin, exactly. So, but the key to making the bone broth, in my from the research I've done, and also what I found with myself, is first of all getting you can use bones, you can do beef bones. I like to do the chicken, but chicken bones, but adding the chicken feet. Have you heard about the chicken feet?
Yes, my grandmother used to do it because we're Middle Eastern. So my grandmother, I was just talking to my daughter a couple of days ago. I'm like, something that is actually really delicious, but you'd be surprised. And she's like, "Oh, gross." I'm like, it was actually really good.
Yeah, I mean, you're not like you're just boiling it. You're just boiling
Oh,
it and then
I ate
discarding.
it.
Oh, you ate it? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she
So I
would
haven't
clean it
gotten there
really
yet.
well. Yeah, she would clean it really well. It's just
Wow.
cartilagey. It's just cartilage.
Yeah. Okay, so I have not eaten the feet. Maybe that's what I will
I've
aspire
gone
to.
further than you.
But
I'm extreme.
right? No, but I know it's so good for you. And so when you boil it in the broth, that is what actually is pulling out all of the gelatin. So when you make broth with chicken feet and you kind of keep it in the fridge over a few days, you're going to notice it really gelatinizes. So it kind of gets into this like thick kind of jello ish
Yeah.
type of consistency. As soon as you melt it and put it in the pot to heat it up, it totally melts. But if you notice in the fridge, like, why is this looking like jello? It's like ding, 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 you're winning if that's the
Oh,
case,
totally.
because you've kind of pulled all of that delicious collagen and gelatin out of the bones. So chicken feet, if you're cooking with bone broth, if you're cooking bone broth and you're doing it on your own, add chicken feet. It's amazing. It's amazing. Really, really good. So collagen, gelatin, dark leafy greens, and healthy fats. I mean, this like healthy omega-3 fats, but really understanding and remembering that all of our the precursor to all of our hormones is actually fat. So, there was this fat phobia for a long time. I think we've come past that.
Yes.
But just remembering to make sure that you're getting in, healthy fats throughout your day, whether it's through the oils that you're cooking with, or adding, nuts and seeds to your salads, or having them as snacks. Lots of healthy avocado is like the best fertility fruit, we
It
call
is.
it.
It's
So
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, really getting in your avocados, your nut butters, and yeah, don't be afraid of fat. Do not be afraid of fat. So fat is another big one.
And full
And
fat dairy, if you are not sensitive to dairy, yogurt, full fat yogurt is a great one because it has the probiotics, sorry, probiotics.
yes, yeah, yes, yes, yeah. And the last one I want to mention about the replace, I mean, obviously, always, eat a rainbow, lots of whole nutrient dense foods. You're never going to go wrong with that. But one thing that I mean, working with women for many years, we are chronic protein under eaters. For the most part, I see, like, generally speaking, I find a lot of women just don't eat enough protein for their body mass. And
Yeah.
so eating healthy amounts of protein for your body is so crucial for making sure, because I mean, the building blocks of life come from protein.
Hmm.
They come from amino acids. And so when you're preparing that body, I mean, when you get pregnant, your baby takes everything from you. It zaps you of energy. So it's so important to ramp up all these nutrient stores in advance as much as you can so that you can have a little bit more, you can have a better pregnancy experience and a better postpartum experience. So remember, the
Yes.
doing this up front is just literally building those foundations for everything that's going to come in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. And it's like you don't build a house on sand. You got to
Yeah.
really make sure that you're getting the solid foundation. So that's what we're doing with all these nutrients.
And now we're on to repair.
Yeah. And so we talked about repair already because I gave you a little bit of information about the gut health, but pretty much as I said at the beginning, you could be eating the healthiest diet in the world and eating all these beautiful fertility nutrient dense foods. But if your gut is compromised, it's going to be hard for your body to assimilate all those nutrients. So my few recommendations for a healthy gut, what can you do on a daily basis, is eating eating prebiotic and probiotic friendly foods. So, I love pairing a couple forkfuls of sauerkraut with my animal protein. I think it tastes great. It also aids in the process of digestion. Getting in that kefir. If I don't, have you heard of L-glutamine? Have you heard of this nutrient called L-glutamine? Yeah, L-glutamine is an amino acid, which is very healing to the gut as well. So
Mhm.
just like collagen powder, you can get L-glutamine powder and kind of put it in your shakes or your smoothies to kind of just help repair the gut if you have indigestion or a compromised gut. But bone broth is also really good for repairing the gut. So a
Yes.
lot of these foods that you'll hear me talk about do kind of overlap with some of the R's, but
Right.
generally speaking, it's all about repairing that gut, making sure that we can now digest all the foods that we're replacing into our diet.
Yeah, and
And the
also
gut,
something to mention is that when you start
yeah.
to have the sauerkraut or adding all those prebiotics, you may have some symptoms at the beginning.
Yes, good point, Michelle. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, if because your body, so when I remember I first, so funny that you said this because I just had this memory now. When I was still working, there's a hospital here that I used to work at in HR. It's called Sick Kids. It's a children's hospital. I used to work at Sick Kids, and this was in my late 20s when I was like, what is this kombucha thing? I'm just gonna go and get and try kombucha. I remember I got a kombucha. I probably had like 5 sips of it, and I was like, what the heck is this? I can't
This
drink
doesn't make
this.
me feel
I
very
got
good.
No, I had the worst headache. I was just like, this is supposed to be a health drink. I feel like crap.
Yeah.
And so, but now I can guzzle kombucha like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
so,
You
so
built
when
up
you
to it,
are
so start slow. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So when you start to re-inoculate your gut with these healthy, friendly bacteria that it might not be used to, your body again is going to respond. So some of my clients, when I do start to supplement them with a probiotic, if I feel it's needed, they do sometimes tell me, Nora, I'm feeling a little bit bloated. Bloating
Yeah.
is probably the most common symptom that you'll notice, but
Mhm.
I say just stick with it. Give it, give it, 5 to 14 days, give it at least 2 weeks to see how your body, changes and responds because you will come past it. It's just your body kind of recalibrating itself.
Yeah, something else that I do want to mention is people who may have SIBO and not realize it
Yes.
may not do well with traditional or like more common probiotics, but they will do well with spore based probiotics
Yes.
versus, yeah,
Exactly. So everything is always my answer. Literally is always it depends. It
yeah,
depends on the individual. It depends on the person.
yeah,
But again, if somebody who has SIBO and is looking to conceive and get pregnant, and they have all of these, and they're not dealing with it, they're not working with a practitioner to help them manage it and
yeah,
manage their symptoms. This is going to imbalance the body and cause problems. So again, this still falls under the repair umbrella. It just
mhm,
totally depends, do you have IBS? Do you have SIBO? Do you have chronic constipation? Do you have chronic diarrhea? Like
yeah,
there's so many kind of arms under the repair, and it just depends on what you've got. You got to bring that back to balance so your
for
gut is as
sure.
healthy as it can be.
Yeah, and I want to kind of mention that so that people aren't like, oh, okay, let me just go do this because it's not for everybody. You
Yes.
really need to know what's going on with you specifically.
Yes,
individually. And it is important to work with somebody who understands and can see that.
exactly. Exactly. No, that was a good point. So thank you for bringing that up.
And now we're on to rebalance.
Rebalance. So the last R. So just to recap, first R, remove, second R, replace, third R, repair, and then the last R is about rebalancing. So as women, our bodies are in a semi-continuous state of pregnancy every single month. That's how we were evolved, and that's what our bodies are designed to do. And so in order for us to do that, we've got these hormones that are fluctuating throughout the month. And so it's about really balancing those hormones as best we can. So how do we balance those hormones? We can actually, there's a variety of different ways that we can do that, but I also, I work with my clients and I help them eat for their menstrual cycle. So it's about knowing how to nourish the body in each phase or each week of your menstrual cycle to really kind of optimize your health or that hormone in that time. Because in the first 2 weeks, our estrogen is really rising, right? As we approach ovulation. And at that, especially in the first week of our cycle, we have our period. We're losing a lot of iron, we're losing a lot of magnesium just because of the blood that's coming out of our body. So we need to make sure we're replenishing that and with foods that have a lot of these nutrients in it. In addition to that, and helping us rise that estrogen in the body is important to make sure we're getting, our flaxseed and our pumpkin seed. Those are really good in helping rise estrogen, making sure we have enough water in our system because
A
that's going to
way
help.
that I
Sorry.
remember that, a way that I help people
Yeah.
remember that, because people get confused. Which ones do I take? Which seeds should I
Yes.
take for which cycle? Think about FP, follicular phase, flax,
Yeah.
pumpkin.
Oh, I like that. Thank you. Flax FP, follicular phase. Yes. But even the follicular, like follicular estrogen, like what is going on? There's so many
Right.
names, but you're right. But the more you hear it and the more you do it, like it does eventually stick, but
Yeah.
it could be a little bit confusing up front. And then also, as we approach ovulation, our body is creating and making all the cervical mucus because we need mucus for sperm to survive. So if we're chronically dehydrated, that mucus production is not going to be as robust as we'd like it to be. So even just something as simple as drinking enough water.
Hmm.
And then in the last two phases of the cycle, in the luteal phase, which is our post-ovulatory phase, our body is very sensitive to blood sugar fluctuations. Our insulin resistance is a little bit higher. And so I really coach my clients on making sure that they're protein and fat loading their day first thing in the morning, understanding and knowing how to balance their blood sugar properly so that, the reproductive hormones just follow that. So, I mean, a lot of these things that I'm talking about the 4 R's kind of weave together at the same time, but I've created this kind of method just to help everybody kind of go, okay, one phase and one step at a time so that they don't feel too overwhelmed with doing
Yeah.
everything at once.
I love it. I think it's great. And it really does. It is so overwhelming when people get
It,
into the fertility journey and try to work out what they need to do. It's very overwhelming, especially when it comes to diet, nutrition. Because they're like, where do we begin?
I know. And in addition to that, we have to remember like it's already such an emotionally charged space. Just because if you are, if you haven't started trying yet and you're just starting to prepare your body and you're thinking about moving, in the next 6 months, I know I want to get pregnant. So I'm going to do everything that I can now. But once you're in that space and maybe you've been trying without a positive test, that is, it's much more emotional, I think, at that time. And so being able to first off manage your emotions with understanding, why hasn't this happened for me yet, with then trying to remember all the things that you want to be doing so that
Yeah.
you can continue to optimize for next cycle. It's a lot. It
Yeah.
really is a lot. So this is precisely why I got into this space. Mhm.
Awesome. Well, this is so much fun to discuss because you're very knowledgeable in this space. And I loved, I'm sure a lot of people get a lot of good insight. But I do want to mention find somebody to help you because it's not something that you just want to do on your own. It's not something that you want to figure out on your own because you don't know what's underlying. And certain things can actually give you an adverse effect. So you really need to understand yourself and what your body needs specifically.
And I'd love to share. I have a free resource if you'd be open to it. I'd love to share with your listeners that I have a Eat to Get Pregnant guide, which is just like it teaches you week by week throughout your cycle, like just briefly what's going on in your body each week, and then specifically what foods to hone in on each week. So it's part of the fourth R, which is rebalance, learning and starting to understand how to eat for your menstrual cycle. If you're interested in just downloading a simple guide on what this would look like, you can find it at naturallynora.ca/eat. And then it's a free download that's easily available for you. And you just print it, keep it on your fridge or keep it by your bedside table. And you're like, oh, I'm bleeding this week. What is Nora? What should I
And I
eat?
have that website, that link on the episode notes. So if anybody wants to go and find it, that's where they can find it. So if people want to work with you, how can they find you?
Yeah. So otherwise, I mean, my website is www.naturallynora.ca. So I'm from Canada, so just remember it's ca, not .com. Or you can find me and message me. I'm very open and love to connect with all women and men, whoever is listening, because it's not just about the women; it's also about the men,
Yes.
right? The sperm
Hmm.
health. But my Instagram handle is naturally_Nora.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nora, for coming on. This is a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.